Podcast Rock City.
What's up, everybody? Joe here from Podcast Rock City. Now, I know normally when you're listening to the show, you would hear Lee, you would hear Nickelbag Rick, you would hear Trey, but they have moved on to other projects. They have a lot going on. Rick with his other podcast, Lee with her bands, plural, I believe. Trey, I believe his band might have got a record contract. I will give you all the news about that eventually. But me, Joe, I wanted to keep doing Podcast Rock City because I enjoy it and there's a lot to talk about, and I don't think that I should just stop because everybody else is busy. So how I'm going to do this now is I'm going to do short shows because I know how hard it is to find the time to listen longer than 25 minutes. But I want this show to be as interactive as I possibly can, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you about a topic, I'm going to tell you my opinion on the topic, and then I'm going to give you an email address, or you can go to the YouTube page and you could leave your comment there, and then I'm going to, at the end of the week, read your opinions and what you have to say, and then I will give another topic, and then we will continue doing this as long as we feel like we need to. And with the Hall of Fame coming up, there is a ton to talk about. And as a matter of fact, we're going to start it off right now with who do we think should be inducting KISS. Now, I know that usually, and I haven't really watched a ton of, hall inductions, but usually it's a famous person inducting their band or whatever, and I'm hearing Lady Gaga might do it, a few other people, but I was wondering, don't we as the KISS Army want to be represented that night? I mean, I know that KISS is our favorite band, and they will be playing on the stage. Hopefully, we'll get into that next week. But don't we want the person inducting the band to be an official member of the KISS Army? Not some famous person that loves KISS. One of us. And that brings up who I think should be inducting KISS into the Hall of Fame, and that's Bill Starkey. Now, you guys might have your own opinion of who might, but I cannot think of who better to induct KISS into the Hall of Fame than the originator of the fan club. I mean, the guy who called up the radio station and said, "Play the music or we're going to surround you with the KISS Army." I can't I think that it would completely and totally give us a sense of pride to see one of us, a real one of us, standing up there explaining why KISS is the best band in the world or the greatest band in the world, and then inducting them into the Hall of Fame. I'm really interested to hear what everybody else has to say. I know that, some people have, of course, other opinions, but for me, it's Bill Starkey. And I've talked to, Matt Porter, and he believes, he thinks the same thing, he's like, Bill's been there from the beginning. Bill has had, their back, and he has been, the leader of the KISS Army for the longest time. At least that's how I look at him. And I don't know. I can't think of anybody else that I would want up there. I mean, it's when the induction, when it came that they were going to be in the Hall of Fame, and I can't think of anybody else. And maybe you can, and that's when I want your, opinions. That's when I want your ideas. Send them to podcastrockcity1@gmail.com or comment right below the YouTube, in the page. But really, when it comes down to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean, Paul and Gene, they always seem to they act like they didn't really care. I'll never know if they did. I kind of believe that they did want to get in, But the Kiss Army has always been adamant about, man, this band belongs in there. How in the world? I mean, I saw a lady on Fox News say just the other, when they got inducted, she was like, I don't understand how Kiss is not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, she was, it was really funny, as a matter of fact, because the guy was like, did your band get into the Hall of Fame? And she was like, yeah, my band did. And the guy went, what, Nirvana? And she went, no, Kiss. And I was so surprised by that. But, she, even on the show, she was like, I don't understand. But the Kiss Army has always stood behind the band. I mean, there's video of a guy, questioning people from the hall, going, why isn't Kiss in? The guy couldn't even speak. He did his part, that's for sure. The guy, So anyway, this is the first show, Podcast Rock City 2.0. One other part that we're going to add to this show. If Paul and Gene and Ace and Peter do not perform together, the original four, that night, or even worse, like if Paul and Gene and Ace and Peter accept separately or something like that, will that be the last straw for you? Will you be like, I've tolerated Tommy in Ace's makeup, I've tolerated Eric in Peter's makeup. Will this be, you're like, to hell with it. They couldn't even get along for 15 minutes, play 3 or 4 songs for us. For me, it doesn't even have to be a makeup. It would be cool if it was, but it doesn't have to be. But 15, 20 minutes is all they have to tolerate each other. And if they can't do it, will that be the last straw for you? Will that be where you go, fine, I'm just, I'm going to move on to Nickelback? For me, I'm going to tell you right ahead, it'll be the last straw. This is what I want. This is, and I understand, I'm nobody, but this is what the whole getting them in was, for us to have a chance to see them one last time on the stage together, performing. And they don't have to exclude Tommy and Eric, or Bruce. I don't have a problem with any of that. But I want to see the original 4 members performing on stage. That's what it's going to take for me to stay, in the Kiss Army, doing, I'll still love the band. They're my band. But that's when I'll be like, all right, if they go up and accept the speech, do the exception speech, and it's just, Gene and Paul, and then Peter and Ace come up and do their own. And then, if they don't perform, or if they perform, Paul, Gene, Tommy, and Eric, I'm done. I'll be so upset at that point because, like I said, it's just 20 minutes, 3 or 4 songs, Next week when I come on, we're gonna discuss what songs they should play, because God, there's like, so far on Facebook I have seen 600 polls, put what songs, and they're all good. There's tons of the set that people would put up they're all good. I haven't seen a bad one. All right, so here we go. We're 10 minutes into it. That's the show. Next week, I will read your comments, your letters I want to know what you think with the questions that I have put out there. Send them to podcastrockcity1@gmail.com or just post on the YouTube page. That's it. Simple. I took 10 or so minutes out of your day. Send me a letter. I appreciate it. I'll try to keep going as long as I possibly can. And I will see you next week. Peace.